Hi, I'm Tom Edwards. I'm the Chief Digital and Innovation Officer for the agency business at Epsilon. And today, we're going to talk about what just transpired minutes ago with Apple's latest event. And it was a showstopper for sure, because normally Apple talks about hardware, they talk about software. Today, it was all about services. Apple understands that as hardware sales decline, in order to diversify revenue and maintain their shareholder value, they need to continue to expand their services. And that came through loud and clear today. Today was all about service. When you think of a service, you can think of everything from iCloud to Siri to Apple Maps to Apple Pay to Apple Music, etc. Those specific services, a lot of them now, are going to be driven through different types of subscription services. So again, this is all about providing as much control and choice to the end user as possible. The day started with Apple News. So think about what Apple Music has done for providing access to just thousands and thousands of artists. They're going to do the same thing for magazines. So essentially for $9.99 per month, you'll have access to 300 plus magazines across various topics. And they've also decided to make it available for family sharing at no additional cost. And this is really interesting. This is all about curation. This is all about trending articles. And this is full magazines. You get the full experience. So what's really interesting is, since this is a premium subscription, they're allowing for, from a marketing perspective, it provides value back potentially even to the full page advertisement directly through specific news magazines and outlets. So this was a really interesting discussion. Now, one of the big points of discussion today was also tied to privacy. Apple has definitely put their foot in the sand, or put a stake in the ground, to basically say, privacy is on device. We are not going to track you. We're not going to allow advertisers to track you. This came through loud and clear across multiple services. So from a News Plus perspective, it's a pure subscription, but the only potential benefit for marketers is potentially through the magazines themselves. Now, one of the bigger announcements of the day was tied to how Apple Pay is evolving. Right now, Apple Pay is accepted at 70% of merchants across the US. There were also numbers globally that were provided. But the big shocker of the day was announcing the Apple Card. So you essentially apply directly on the phone. There are no fees. There are lower interest rates. There was a very clearly articulated reward program. And again, privacy was at the forefront of the discussion. So with Apple Pay, you've had over 10 billion transactions to date. And again, it's accepted worldwide. And for the Apple Card, it's actually backed by and accepted wherever MasterCard's accepted as well from the online version. We'll talk about that in just a minute. But you simply apply directly on the device. And now the wallet has evolved. So it goes from more than just holding your virtual credit card. It shows you how much you owe, what you spent on, when it was due. And the really interesting piece here, Apple spent a lot of time talking about how, with credit cards, it's all about, driving more money through you, through interest rates, etc. Here, with the Apple Card, they've developed a very intuitive user experience that allows you to play with the total balance due, create your own payment plans, and essentially shows you in real time any of the specific interest charges. So it was a very, very interesting use of a simple UI here. They're also driving for new ways in which to engage. If you want to make more payments, great. If you want to, pick multiple days, go for it. The other piece here was found lower interest rates, no penalty for the interest rates. The other piece, again, back to privacy. They're not tracking what you buy. And their partner here is Goldman Sachs from a banking perspective that's actually backing this. And what Goldman Sachs basically has promised is also not to sell information. Now, if you can't use Apple Pay in the card, they're going to issue this really unique looking titanium card. It doesn't have any numbers on it, but you can use it to swipe. All of the information is actually still loaded in the wallet in case you need to enter that information. But there's no credit card number, no CVV, no expiration date, no signature. Now, one thing that's interesting to note here is the actual rewards program. Apple is going to offer daily cash back. You get 3% on an Apple Pay purchase or any type of Apple purchase, 2% back on any Apple Pay purchase, and 1% daily cash back by using this titanium card. So this is really a game changer in a lot of ways. Apple is looking to help further extend credit and being able to make it easier for people to consume and buy products and using their platform as the basis for payment. So I was really, really intrigued by the launch of the Apple Card today. Moving on, another subscription service was launched, which is called Apple Arcade. So if you look at it right now, there are 1 billion players on iOS that are playing games. There are 300,000 games that are available. What Apple wants to do is create a new subscription service of over 100 games that you can then play across mobile, macOS, Apple TV. You can pick up wherever you left off, moving from device to device. Subscription details are going to be coming later this fall. But essentially, they're also creating original content. And that was another theme today. Apple-owned original content. So this will exist as a specific arcade tab within the Apple Games area here, the App Store. And again, there are no ads. There's no additional purchase. Play across device. Also with the ability to play offline. So this was an interesting play by Apple. You see them making this move towards content ownership. Before, it's been all about being a navigator and a facilitator and providing access. Now, with Apple Arcade and with what we're about to discuss with Apple TV Plus, Apple is moving from navigation to destination. So speaking of Apple TV, one of the big announcements that came out of today was that starting with Apple TV channels. With Apple TV channels, they're essentially they acknowledge that if you want to stay with a big cable provider, that's great, but for those who want more flexibility and control, and we found from our proprietary research that control and empowerment of the consumer is incredibly important, that what they're going to do is Apple's essentially going to allow people to pay for what they want, have it all in one application. It's on demand, online or off. Family sharing is an option here as well. So if you want HBO, if you want Showtime, Cinemax, etc., you can subscribe specifically to those channels. What they'll also do across Apple TV is, again, with Siri integrated, Apple wants to be that curator and that navigator for your content. What they're doing is they're applying machine learning and driving personalization and recommendation engine across the different types of content providers. This makes sure that they are still sticky, even though some of the other content may be coming from other platforms. They're the ones providing the access and the ease of use here across platforms. So this then moved into probably the biggest announcement of the day, and a lot of us had expected this. We'd heard of Apple's potential NetflixKiller, and basically their approach to original content. It's yet to be seen whether or not this is going to be a Netflix killer, but opening up with Steven Spielberg and then diving into a multitude of different content types and content creators. You had Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon and Steve Carell talking about The Morning Show. You had Jason Momoa talking about this amazing action sequence called C, where everyone is blind in the future. You had Kumail Nanjiani talking about immigration stories, and Cody from Sesame Street and J.J. Abrams, and probably the biggest announcement was Oprah coming to TV Plus, owning a few different shows here. One is a book club and one is another kind of discussion show. But all of this is purely directed to position Apple as an end destination and to compete directly with those other original content providers. So you think of what Amazon has been doing with Amazon Prime. You think about Netflix and Hulu and what Disney's going to be launching with some of their additional streaming services, potentially tied to Marvel and Star Wars, etc. This is a key place in terms of that Apple is now moving and shifting as they understand the importance of not only being that navigator, but also providing that end destination. So for now, that TV Plus is going to be an ad-free subscription service. It's going to be exclusive Apple originals. The pricing wasn't announced yet, but they definitely talked about the number of countries that it was going to be available within. So, a couple key takeaways from today's event. This was, again, all about services. This was a push by Apple to show very clearly how they plan on monetizing different subscription pathways moving forward. There were a couple of other things reiterated throughout the show. One is the focus on privacy, on-device privacy, not allowing for the tracking of individuals and their behaviors within Apple and their specific ecosystem, although that was without consent. So there's a little bit of a nuance there as well in terms of giving consumers control, especially third-party developers. There has to be consent given, obviously. The other side here is really around the control aspect tied to the subscriptions. So now we as consumers have as much choice across the Apple ecosystem when it comes to the type of entertainment and the services that we want to participate in. So I found this this event was very intriguing. It was interesting to see the shift from hardware and software and get very specific into the services. I thought the Apple Card launch in and of itself was very, very interesting to see how some of the elements of that program are going to shift the way in which traditional banks interact with their own card services. So this is Tom Edwards. If you have any questions, you can always reach me at tom.edwards@epsilon.com or follow me on Twitter at blackfin360. Thank you.